Tonight, serious allegations. A motivational speaker from Dawson Creek has been charged. Healthcare hires. 4 new doctors moving to Fort St. John. And green light. A major LNG project moves forward in northwest British Columbia. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with serious charges being laid against a well-known motivational speaker with ties to Dawson Creek. Earl Lambert is facing 11 charges, including 6 counts of sexual assault and 4 counts of assault.
I tell anybody, when you raise your hands, I tell the warriors, when you raise your hand to a woman and you threaten them, are you abuse them mentally, psychologically, emotionally, or sexually? You're allowing your spirit to be idle.
Lambert is of Cree and Métis descent and calls himself an inspirational storyteller. He has spoken to over 200 First Nations across Canada. He grew up in Dawson Creek and claims he went from being a criminal in jail to a motivational speaker. Well, now a victim has come forward to tell her story. She cannot be named, but she alleges Lambert mentally and sexually abused her. She says he has been outspoken about bullying and it would make her angry to hear him speak about it. She adds, he was talking to others about living their best life, then she alleges he would come home and scare the hell out of her and her dog. She says the alleged abuse felt like a death, so she wrote a book because she says she couldn't talk to Lambert about her feelings. CJDC-TV News spoke to Lambert, however, he declined to comment on the story. Now, it is important to note that none of these allegations have been proven in a court of law. 4 new doctors are being welcomed in Fort St. John. The North Peace Division of Family Practice making the announcement. The city is adding 2 family physicians, Dr. Rayan Alquazizi and Dr. Celia Wang. Also, Dr. Laura Corridor Mesa will bring her practice as an internist to the city, and Dr. Sarvain Fernandez, an anesthesiologist, is also coming to Fort St. John. City officials say they are pleased to welcome the 4 new medical professionals. Northern Health announcing a second emergency department diversion at the Chetwynd Hospital in less than a week. The health authority making the announcement on social media. It said services for the emergency room will be interrupted from this morning at 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Northern Health says the closure is due to staffing challenges. Now, back on September the 12th, the Chetwynd ER was on diversion for the same reason. Health officials say residents needing emergency care should call 911 to be transported to the nearest available hospital. The BC General Employees Union is once again escalating its strike. The move includes workers in the province's mining sector. Members working at the Mineral Development and Minerals Title Office in Vancouver, as well as the Southeast Mines Office in Cranbrook, joined picket lines today. The move is designed to target the natural resource projects that were announced by Prime Minister Mark Carney last week. The union says those projects cannot go forward without its workers. Now, 2 weeks into the strike, the union has already announced an overtime ban for liquor distribution store workers, as well as sheriffs and correctional officers. A new controversy involving the leadership process for the BC Conservative Party to tell you about tonight, and it all centers around a fishy list of new party members. CTV's Craig Krause explains.
According to sources, around 2,100 new BC Conservative members signed up to vote in the leadership review of John Rusted in Kelowna, but the numbers in the emails of the names associated seem strange. Take a look at this. Many of the phone numbers in Kelowna are the same number for every digit, and the emails are a first and last name followed by @getcloudmail.co. One source says that 2 of the people named are no longer alive, and that the memberships were paid for by 3 credit cards. This alleged scandal sparked fireworks at a caucus meeting on Friday. Sources say Rusted was asked to leave the meeting as caucus discussed his leadership. The source says during that same meeting, Rusted advised that the list of new members has been deleted. Here's what a member of the caucus told CTV News on Monday.
Is there some troubling reports starting to emerge? Yes, there are. I haven't seen any documents or anything of that nature that are being referenced out there right now. But certainly I have some concerns in terms of, making sure that we are, as a BC Conservative caucus and as a BC Conservative caucus, always functioning at the highest level of integrity and always making sure that the public has their faith in us.
The drama doesn't stop at the new numbers. CTV News has obtained a screenshot of an email from Rusted caucus after the meeting, apologizing for spreading a rumor and embarrassing an individual for having a relationship with someone in the Conservative office. And the leadership vote is taking place on Thursday, and we're also hearing that it's been moved to a larger venue to accommodate for the influx of legitimate members. Craig Crowe, CTV News, Vancouver.
Following a joint decision by provincial ministers, an environmental assessment certificate has been issued for a major LNG project in northwest British Columbia. The Sea Lisms LNG project is a proposed floating liquid natural gas structure at Pierce Island, right by the Alaska border. Nearly 24 conditions have been imposed that the project must follow throughout its lifespan. Key requirements include a greenhouse gas emissions plan that must meet BC's net zero policy and plans to manage impacts to wildlife and wildlife habitats. Canada's inflation rate rose to 1.9% in August, up from a 1.7% increase in July. That according to new data released from Stats Canada today. It says a smaller than expected decrease in gas prices helped fuel the increase. All eyes now turn to the Bank of Canada, which will release its interest rate decision tomorrow. And we know that grocery bills are continuing to climb, and for many Canadians, it's the price of meat that's hitting the hardest. CTV's Kathy Lee takes a look at what's driving the cost of beef and how consumers are trying to stretch their dollars.
The high price of meat, especially beef, is just something Canadians are going to have to live with for a while. A food expert CTV News spoke to says the reason for the increase in beef prices is because of dry weather that the U.S. Midwest and Western Canada experienced a few years ago. It meant there wasn't enough feed for the cattle, so farmers had to cut down the size of their herd.
What that means is there are fewer cows, and cows are really the factory of the beef industry. If calves aren't born, then you can't grow them into animals that are later harvested. So we have to rebuild our beef herd.
Shoppers I spoke to today say with the price of beef so high, they've either had to cut back or not eat it altogether or go with a different protein.
We just try to, buy as much as we can afford, and that's all we can do.
We live in a senior building. Some of the people in the building are struggling.
We eat other meat, and I try to eat at least a couple vegetarian meals a week.
As for how long the high cost will last, experts say it can take a few years until the price of beef softens. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
And the impact from the rising cost of living is at the center of a new report released today on poverty levels in this country. Food Banks Canada is out with its National Poverty Report Card, and it includes some bleak findings as well as emerging positive indicators. Overall, the report gives the federal government a D for its poverty reduction efforts. The latest data shows poverty and insecurity in Canada rose nearly 40% over the past 2 years alone. And Ottawa gets an F on both unemployment and food insecurity, but a C on the legislative process for things like actions on school food programs, dental care, and pharmacare. The report makes 3 recommendations, including a commitment to reducing food insecurity in Canada by 50% by the year 2030. Also today, Mark Carney got an update from Saskatchewan's premier on his trip to China. Scott Moe addressed the steep tariffs on canola exports. The province is the world's leading canola producer. Here's Alison Bamford on whether progress was made on what is a significant economic driver right here in the Peace region.
His commitment to our country, obviously he's working for the people of Saskatchewan, but commitment to our country and contribution at the tables have been essential to getting us together and moving forward.
A quick welcome before getting down to work. This afternoon's meeting between the Premier and Prime Minister, a chance to debrief after Scott Moe's trade mission to China earlier this month. Moe met with Chinese government agencies responsible for imposing the steep tariffs on Canadian canola products. Talks, he said, were much more positive than expected.
This is another step in finding our way through what is a pretty difficult time for a significant Canadian industry.
The tariffs are driving down canola prices at a time when farmers are at their busiest. Once the crops are harvested, the pressure will shift. Do producers sell or delay as long as possible?
There's just no real answers, and And again, no real indication from our federal government as to what sort of support as producers we could be expecting in the future.
The duties are widely viewed as retaliation for Canada's 100% tariff imposed on Chinese electric vehicles.
Tariffs on canola came up unexpectedly. If they can come on fast, then come off fast. And the Chinese are just going to want something in return.
Before flying to Ottawa, Mo told reporters he's hopeful an agreement could be reached by the end of the year. But farmers are still fearful that this could drag on. And with bills to pay, producers may be forced to sell their commodities at a price much lower than the cost of production. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Well, Canadians will find out on November the 4th how the government in Ottawa plans to spend our money. The date for the federal budget has now been set.
We're going to present a great budget in this House on the 4th of November, Mr. Speaker.
The budget is typically tabled in the spring, but the Liberals have delayed the fiscal update until this fall. It'll be the first under Prime Minister Mark Carney. He has billed the budget as both cost-cutting and an investment. The minority government will need the support from at least one other party to pass the budget in Parliament. And with a new session of Parliament underway, the Assembly of First Nations outlined today what it wants to see from the federal government.
With the new session of Parliament, we are releasing an open letter today to all parliamentarians this week to provide an overview of the legislative priorities of the Assembly of First Nations that we've been discussing with chiefs since the end of June. We are also taking the opportunity to remind all parliamentarians of Canada's legal obligations to First Nations when making decisions that impact our inherent rights, our title, and our treaties.
The AFN says several outstanding issues in First Nation communities, such as lack of infrastructure and clean drinking water, still require federal attention and money. The organization is considered those issues and others will be sidelined by Ottawa in favor of economic interest. Today, one chief warned that unless funding levels are either increased or maintained, First Nations shouldn't be expected to help the government move its major projects agenda forward. Transport and Internal Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland says she's stepping down from cabinet and will not run in the next federal election.
She's had literally every tough assignment there is in government, and she's done it with extraordinary flair.
Freeland announced the move exactly 9 months after she first quit cabinet. That set the stage for Justin Trudeau's resignation as Prime Minister. She then ran for the Liberal leadership, losing to Mark Carney. The Prime Minister has now asked Freeland to serve as Canada's new special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Hollywood legend Robert Redford has died. He was a generational talent both in front of the camera and behind it. With more on his career and his lasting impact on the film industry, here's Andrea Case.
There are movie stars, and then there was Charles Robert Redford Jr. Born in Santa Monica, California in 1936, his acting career began on television in 1959. He moved on to Broadway, and then came the movies. His good looks cemented his leading man status. But Redford was more than just a pretty face and turned down acting roles which he thought would stereotype him.
Well, that ought to do it. Use enough dynamite there, Butch?
Robert Redford was someone who I think wasn't always given credit for his enormous talent as an actor simply because he was too good looking. He had the Brad Pitt syndrome that people, I think for a while, just refused to take him as seriously as he deserved to be taken as an actor. But then you look at those films and you place them back to back to back. You see how different they all are, and you see that the common link is Robert Redford.
Marvin, what do we do now?
He made his directorial debut with the family drama Ordinary People in 1980. It garnered him his first Academy Award. Redford stood for many issues, his star power attracting attention to causes which included political activism, the environment, Native American and Indigenous peoples' rights, and LGBTQ rights. In 1981, he created the Sundance Institute, named after his Sundance character, and in 1985, the Sundance Film Festival was born, taking place where he lived in Utah in the middle of winter.
Our job and our role is to create a space and a platform to bring new voices and new ways of seeing the world using independent film
Redford was married twice and had 4 children and 7 grandchildren. He died in his sleep this morning at home in Utah, surrounded by those he loved. Robert Redford was 89.
All right, please do stay tuned. Noah will be right back after the break with weather.